Have you ever sat across from your partner at the end of a long day and realized the silence feels louder than it used to? Not in a bad way, necessarily, but in that way where comfort and routine have slowly replaced surprise and spark. You still care, still love, but life has crept in. Between bills, work, kids, aging parents, maybe a few stubborn aches and pains, the connection doesn't vanish, it just softens into the background. And then one day, you look up and wonder, when did we stop doing that thing we used to love? When did we get so efficient? If that hits close to home, you're not alone. It's one of the most common, and least talked about, parts of hitting your 40s as a couple. This stage of life brings wisdom, stability, and deeper bonds, but it also quietly robs us of a few small but mighty rituals that once held us together. That's what we're here to talk about. In this video, we're diving into 5 things many couples stop doing after 40 without even noticing, and more importantly, how to gently bring them back. Not by forcing anything. Not by adding pressure to already full plates. But by returning, little by little, to what made you you as a couple in the first place. Let's start with something deceptively simple, talking for the sake of talking. Not about the grocery list. Not about who's picking up the kid from soccer. Not about the leak in the upstairs bathroom. I'm talking about those conversations, the ones that used to stretch late into the night, when time felt like it disappeared because you were so wrapped up in each other's thoughts. But these days, if your conversations feel more like status updates than soul sharing, you're not alone. We get practical. Efficient. We start managing life like a shared business instead of living it like a shared adventure. And it's not because you don't care. It's because there's just so much noise. But here's the quiet truth, you don't need 3 hours and a bottle of wine to reconnect. Sometimes, 10 undistracted minutes is enough to crack open the door again. One couple I spoke with started something they call porch talks. Every Friday evening, they sit outside with a drink, no phones, no agenda, and just talk. Sometimes it's light, sometimes it's deep, sometimes it's nothing earth-shattering. But it's theirs. It's a soft space to land. And over time, that space brought them back to each other. You can try this anywhere, on a walk, on the couch, even while folding laundry. What matters isn't the setting, it's the presence. Look them in the eye. Ask, what's been on your mind lately that we haven't talked about? And then just listen. Not to fix. Not to respond. Just to hear them. You might be surprised at what comes up. Another thing that tends to fade with time? Flirting. Yeah, that playful banter. The quick kisses in the kitchen. The way you used to brush their arm just a second longer than necessary. Somewhere along the way, flirting becomes something we do before commitment, not something we keep doing within it. But the truth is, your partner still wants to feel desired. Seen. Chosen. Just like you do. The great news? You don't have to suddenly become a rom-com character to bring flirting back. Start with something small, a compliment that's about more than appearance. A cheeky wink from across the dinner table. A text in the middle of the day that just says, thinking of you, and what you're wearing. It sounds silly. But that's the point. Flirting isn't about being serious, it's about play. And play, especially in this season of life, is deeply underrated. I remember a story from a woman in her late 40s who told me she and her husband started leaving little notes in each other's shoes in the morning. Just silly things. A doodle. A reminder. A private joke. She said, it makes me feel like we're dating again, but better, because now we've survived a mortgage and 2 teenagers. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? You've built something. You've endured. Which means you've earned the right to bring joy back into it, without apology. So maybe the next time your partner walks into the room, you just take a second to actually look at them, really look, and smile. Maybe you touch their arm when you hand them a cup of coffee. Maybe you let yourself be just a little bit silly again. It's not about going back in time. It's about layering intimacy into the life you've already built. And speaking of intimacy, let's talk about one more thing couples quietly let slip away: celebrating the little stuff. Remember when getting through the week without burning dinner or missing a deadline felt like a victory? You'd high five, go out for pizza, toast over cheap wine. But now, achievements tend to get folded into the what's next list before we even pause to feel them. But celebrating small wins, together, is one of the most powerful ways to fuel connection. It tells your partner, I see you. I'm in this with you. And even the little things matter. One man told me he and his wife started what they call the Friday night clap. Every Friday, they take turns sharing one thing they're proud of from the week. It could be something big, like finishing a tough project. Or something tiny, like not snapping during rush hour traffic. And then, the other person claps for them. Literally. A full-on, exaggerated round of applause. It's goofy. And it works. Because at the end of the day, we're all just big kids trying to feel noticed, appreciated, and loved. Especially by the person we've chosen to share life with. And if that sense of celebration has gone quiet in your relationship, that doesn't mean it's gone for good. It just means it needs an invitation back. Try it. Celebrate something ridiculous tonight. Make a big deal out of doing the dishes. Toast to making it through Monday. Clap loudly for that morning workout. Watch what happens, not just to your mood, but to your bond. It's funny how easily joy slips into the background when life feels like a never-ending to-do list. Somewhere between school pickups, deadlines, and trying to eat a vegetable once in a while, we forget that relationships thrive not on grand gestures, but on tiny, intentional acts repeated with love. And that brings us to something that's often the first to go when life gets busy: shared novelty. When was the last time you and your partner tried something completely new together? Not just a new Netflix series or a different flavor of ice cream, but something that got you both out of your comfort zones. Novelty is powerful. It wakes up the brain. It triggers dopamine, the same chemical that floods us in the early stages of love. And when we do something new with someone, especially something playful or even a little nerve-wracking, that feeling of aliveness doesn't just get tied to the activity. It gets tied to the person we're doing it with. I'm not saying you have to go bungee jumping next weekend. But what about dancing lessons? Or volunteering together? Taking a spontaneous road trip with no destination? Even just cooking a dish neither of you can pronounce? There's this couple I know in their early 50s who started a once-a-month dare. Each month, they take turns choosing an activity the other person wouldn't normally suggest. One month it was pottery. Another was axe throwing. They joked that it was mostly terrible, but they laughed, got lost, and remembered what it felt like to discover something as a team, not just as roommates managing a house. And honestly, that's what most couples crave at this stage, not just comfort, but a shared sense of movement. Growth. Possibility. Even if it's messy. Even if it's awkward. Because awkward together is still together. Now let's talk about a big one. One that often gets buried beneath all the responsibilities, but whose absence is felt more deeply than we admit. Touch. Not just sexual intimacy, though that's important too, but the everyday physical affection that says, I'm here. I'm yours. I still choose you. A lot of couples notice that after 40, physical affection starts to fade, not out of rejection, but out of routine. You're tired. You're juggling a million things. Sometimes you're just touched out by the end of the day. And slowly, the hugs get shorter. The kisses get skipped. The cuddles turn into back-to-back sleep with separate alarms. But the human body remembers touch. It craves it. A hand on the back, fingers brushing in the hallway, a spontaneous hug while dinner's on the stove. These tiny gestures matter. Not because they're dramatic, but because they're grounding. They remind us that we're not just coexisting, we're still connected. One woman told me that after years of barely touching her husband outside of functional moments, she decided to start holding his hand during TV time. No conversation. No build-up. Just slid her hand into his. She said the first time, He looked at her like he'd just won the lottery. It became their quiet ritual. And over time, something shifted. He started reaching for her too. Not just physically, but emotionally. Because that's the thing about physical affection, it's often the doorway to emotional intimacy. You don't have to talk it out first. Sometimes, you just have to reach out. And if it's been a while and that feels awkward, start small. A hand on the knee. A kiss on the cheek. A longer than usual hug goodbye. Let the body remember what the heart already knows. Now, I want to touch on something that might surprise you: laughter. When couples stop laughing together, something starts to harden. Not just the mood, but the whole dynamic. Life feels heavier. Interactions feel more transactional. And even though nothing is wrong, it starts to feel flat. But laughter is more than just fun. It's medicine. It releases tension. It creates inside jokes. It builds a private little world that only the two of you understand. Think about the last time you truly laughed together, not polite chuckles, but that kind of laughter that makes your stomach hurt and your eyes water. What sparked it? A ridiculous video? A shared memory? A mutual friend's awkward dance move at a wedding? You don't have to force humor, but you can invite it. Rewatch that old comedy you both loved in your 20s. Play a silly game. Tell a dumb joke, even if it flops. Look for the light moments in the middle of the chaos. They're there. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, like when your partner can't figure out how to open a Ziploc bag or insists on assembling IKEA furniture without reading the directions. The key is to notice those moments and lean into them. Let yourself be goofy again. Tease, in love. Smile across the room. Make faces at each other in public like teenagers. That kind of playfulness keeps you young, not just in your body, but in your bond. And honestly, that's what this season of life is asking of us, not to be who we were at 25, but to bring that energy into who we are now. Wiser. More weathered. More grateful. Still growing. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to chase some ideal version of passion or perfection. You just need to start noticing the places where love has gone quiet and invite it to speak again. There's something beautiful about being with someone who has seen you through decades of change. The good days, the messy ones, the silent stretches in between. But somewhere along the way, that deep familiarity can quietly turn into something we never intended: emotional autopilot. That's why the last thing I want to talk about isn't about what you do, but how you see each other. Many couples in their 40s and 50s stop expressing appreciation in the ways they used to. Not because they don't feel it, but because they assume it's understood. That a quiet thanks here or there is enough. That the years themselves are proof of love. And in many ways, they are. But here's the thing: gratitude that isn't spoken eventually stops being felt. We all want to feel appreciated, especially by the one person who's seen us at our best and worst. A compliment. A thank you for making dinner. I noticed how hard you worked this week. These little acknowledgments don't just brighten someone's day, they rebuild the invisible threads that hold a relationship together. And the magic? It multiplies. The more you give it, the more it flows back. One couple told me they started a bedtime ritual they call one thing. Every night, just before turning off the lights, they each share one thing they appreciated about the other that day. It could be tiny: "I loved the way you laughed during that show." Or "Thank you for calling my mom when I forgot." Sometimes it's tender. Sometimes funny. But always intentional. And they said it changed everything, not overnight, but gently, like water smoothing stone. Because when you feel seen, you soften. When you feel appreciated, you open. And when both partners commit to not letting a day go by without gratitude, the entire atmosphere of the relationship shifts. Now I know what you might be thinking. It all sounds nice, but real life isn't always that graceful. Sometimes you're just trying to survive the week. Sometimes you're tired, grumpy, disconnected. And yeah, sometimes it's been years since you felt that old spark. But here's the truth, you don't have to go back to who you were. You just have to decide who you want to become, together, from here. You can bring back the things you thought were lost. You can hold hands again, even if it's been a while. You can laugh again, even after a tough season. You can flirt again, even with crow's feet and coffee breath. You can talk for the sake of talking. You can try new things, touch more often, and celebrate the small stuff like it actually matters, because it does. And no, it won't always be perfect. You might forget. You might fumble. You might feel silly or vulnerable or even rejected some days. That's okay. That's part of being human. But don't let fear or fatigue keep you from reaching out. Because the couples who stay connected the longest aren't the ones who have it all figured out, they're the ones who keep showing up, even when it would be easier to pull away. So today, maybe you start with one thing. One kind word. One 5-minute conversation. One touch that lingers just a moment longer than usual. That's how change begins, not with a dramatic overhaul, but with one small shift in attention. And over time, those little things? They start to add up. They become the new normal. The quiet magic in your everyday life. The reason you still light up when you see each other across a crowded room or a messy kitchen. You're not too old. It's not too late. Your relationship isn't stuck. It's just waiting for a little oxygen. A little intention. A little love in motion. So if this video has reminded you of something you want to bring back into your relationship, don't wait. Don't overthink. Just try. And keep trying. Because you deserve a connection that grows deeper, not duller, with time. And if this spoke to you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's something you've stopped doing as a couple that you'd like to revive? What's one thing you're going to try today? And if you found this helpful, go ahead and like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need to hear it too. We're building a little community here of people choosing love again and again, even when life gets complicated. Here's to growing, to reconnecting, and to remembering that love, real, lasting love, isn't built on perfection. It's built on presence. You've got this. And we're cheering for you. Sometimes the most powerful shifts in a relationship don't come from adding more, but from remembering what was already there. The laughter, the spark, the comfort, the admiration, it's all still possible, even if life has blurred it around the edges. And if you're watching this and thinking, but what if we've grown apart? What if too much time has passed? I want you to hear this. Growing apart doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you've been growing without turning toward each other. That's something you can change. One of the most healing things you can do at this stage of life is simply choose your partner again. Not out of obligation or nostalgia, but as an active decision. To see them as they are now. To let yourself be seen, too. Not the curated version. The real one. Wrinkles, weariness, and all. That's where true intimacy lives. In the moments where you're both vulnerable enough to say, hey, I miss you, or I want to try again, or even just let's make things a little more fun. And maybe that's your next step, not fixing, but reopening. Creating space for lightness. For softness. For touch, for words, for silliness, for surprises. One couple I met in a workshop did something so simple it stuck with me ever since. They made a deal that once a week, they'd each do one thing, big or small, that made the other person feel loved. No explanation, no strings attached. Just a small act of emotional generosity. One week, it was making their favorite dinner. Another, it was writing a note and hiding it in their briefcase. They said it changed the rhythm of their relationship. Not because the gestures were dramatic, but because they were deliberate. That's the key word here, deliberate. When we're young, love feels spontaneous. But in midlife, love becomes a practice. And that's not a bad thing. Because what's more meaningful than being loved on purpose? If your relationship feels distant right now, don't wait for a perfect moment to shift it. There won't be one. But there's power in starting before you're ready. While things are still messy. While you're still tired. While it's easier to grab your phone than reach for your partner's hand. Do it anyway. Send the text. Make the joke. Ask the question. Apologize first. Celebrate something dumb. Say thank you for the ride, for the patience, for staying when things were hard. Because the truth is, we don't fall out of love all at once. It happens in the little things we stop doing. And we find our way back in the same way, through the little things we choose to start again. So wherever you are in your relationship right now, whether you feel solid, or a little shaky, or like your two ships quietly drifting apart, I want to remind you that change doesn't require perfection. Just effort. Small, steady effort rooted in care. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to care enough to try. And if your partner's watching this with you, maybe now's a good time to turn and say something simple. Like, I'm glad we're still here. Or, I'd love to bring some of this back. That's how new chapters begin, with a shared breath, not a dramatic overhaul. Before we close, I want to say thank you for showing up for this conversation. For being willing to look inward and to choose connection in a world that often distracts us from it. That willingness? It matters more than you know. If this resonated with you, share it with someone else who might need a gentle nudge back toward love. Someone who's forgotten that it's never too late to reconnect, to laugh, to touch, to play, to begin again. Leave a comment below and tell me what your version of coming back might look like. A moment. A memory. A habit you're ready to revive. I'd love to hear it. Others reading will too. You might inspire someone just by being honest. And if you're not already part of this community, I'd love to have you stick around. Hit that subscribe button if this felt like a soft place to land. We've got more coming your way, more heart, more stories, more ways to grow in the messy, beautiful middle chapters of life. Until then, take care of each other. Be kind. Be goofy. Be honest. And keep choosing each other, even when it's easier not to. Here's to love that matures but never dulls. Here's to you, still trying, still reaching, still believing that something beautiful can begin again, right here, right now. Say thank you for the ride, for the patience, for staying when things were hard. Because the truth is, we don't fall out of love all at once. It happens in the little things we stop doing. And we find our way back in the same way, through the little things we choose to start again. So wherever you are in your relationship right now, whether you feel solid, or a little shaky, or like your two ships quietly drifting apart, I want to remind you that change doesn't require perfection. Just effort. Small, steady effort rooted in care. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to care enough to try. And if your partner's watching this with you, maybe now's a good time to turn and say something simple. Like, I'm glad we're still here. Or, I'd love to bring some of this back. That's how new chapters begin, with a shared breath, not a dramatic overhaul. Before we close, I want to say thank you for showing up for this conversation. For being willing to look inward and to choose connection in a world that often distracts us from it. That willingness? It matters more than you know. If this resonated with you, share it with someone else who might need a gentle nudge back toward love. Someone who's forgotten that it's never too late to reconnect, to laugh, to touch, to play, to begin again. Leave a comment below and tell me what your version of coming back might look like. A moment. A memory. A habit you're ready to revive. I'd love to hear it. Others reading will too. You might inspire someone just by being honest. And if you're not already part of this community, I'd love to have you stick around. Hit that subscribe button if this felt like a soft place to land. We've got more coming your way, more heart, more stories, more ways to grow in the messy, beautiful middle chapters of life. Until then, take care of each other. Be kind. Be goofy. Be honest. And keep choosing each other, even when it's easier not to. Here's to love that matures but never dulls. Here's to you, still trying, still reaching, still believing that something beautiful can begin again, right here, right now.